Hello, this is National Chess Master Rats here to analyze the game played at chess.com between Space Cowboy 9 and Pindall 91. This was played in a thematic correspondence event, online chess, where one move every 3 days. So, turn-based game. Obviously, hopefully, both players spent more time, and I'm sure they saw far more in this position than I did, but I'll give a few insights into it. This comes out of Symmetrical English, an opening that I'm extremely familiar with. I've got a lot of videos I've made about this opening that other players have played. I encourage all of you, if you're trying to improve your game, if you've worked through my lesson program, to go to my website and check out the links for Team 45 League games. Most of these are 15-minute videos, although the more recent ones have extended into 30, 45 minutes and longer, as I certainly found lots of entertaining things to talk about. But they're posted on a separate website. I haven't updated the latest ones, but they are sorted by opening. So if you can look for openings that you're interested in, that you want to see more on, but every video is exceptionally torn apart, and a lot of stuff is shown in there that'll really help your game. So if you watch them all, you're going to improve. The later ones, as I said, I haven't posted. They are available on my YouTube channel. You may subscribe to that. That's on my website too, on the links page. I will get those all updated as soon as I can. Believe me, I'm doing a lot this summer. I've got the whole summer off, and that's why I'm here doing these videos here while summer winds down for me. Okay, generally speaking, it's probably better for white to play d4 here in this position than castle. The reason being that black may in turn play d5, and white's okay against that, but then black a tempo down is trying a lot of the ideas that white does. White tries to play. Okay, but it goes this way, and now black missed his chance to do it, but I guess it can't because it's a thematic tournament, right? Okay. Now, this is the defining part of this opening. Now, what black should do in main lane, doesn't mean he has to do it. Main line is to play knight takes d4 and queen takes d4, and then main line consists with d6, and then white backs the queen up to d3. And I've got a lot of interesting comments on this position. I'm not sure where the thematic ended. There is a chance for black to, and I've covered this. I mentioned it one video at Team 45 League, and somebody went and played it and won a nice game with it as a result of looking at my analysis and doing some research. But black has an interesting pawn sacrifice here with d6. The point being that if white takes on c6, there's a recapture. The bishop comes down to c6 and grabs the pawn, but black gets a lot of activity. The rook slides over to b8, and the bishop has to eventually back up. Might as well do it right away. And black gets a lot of pressure on the queen side for the sacrifice pawn. And I'm not going to analyze that out. There's a lot of comments on the 45 League videos. You'll have to track them down, and they're worth looking because you can score some points with black in this position. Okay, so, but what happens is after a6 is white can do something he could have done against d6, and that's decline the gambit with knight c2. And I believe knight c2 is the best move in this position. And I've covered this in a video before. The basic idea is that eventually this knight will find its way to e3, and white is crawling all over d5. His pawn on e4 will probably get to e2 will probably get to e4, and white just has this total vice grip on the d5 square. And if black pushes e6, then he's just got a little bit of a weakness on the d file. But it's a game. Black should be okay and have resources against it. The other nice thing about the knight on c2 is that eventually white will follow up with b3, and that knight on c2 helps secure the rook on a1. I've actually had people go ahead and play knight e4 and displace my knight on c3 so that the bishop comes down and grabs this rook, but the knight retakes it. So that's kind of long and involved. There's a lot of circles and arrows. Maybe I'll just show you. Okay, knight c2. Now, at some point, let's just play what I call fantasy chess, just a sample line. Now, suppose white plays b3 right here. Well, black goes knight e4. Well, fine. Well, the bishop can take it. Let's forget for a moment the bishop can take it. Let me just save time. The knight takes, the bishop takes, and then this knight comes over and takes here. And it might be that there's a white pawn on e4 that white gave up to keep the bishop from taking. But or maybe not. But anyway, the point is white now has 2 minor pieces for the rook, and I've actually had people do this against me, and white has a winning game, and if you know how to win with 2 pieces for the rook, you're in great shape. Okay, so let's get back to the game, and I was studying this opening extensively about 30 years ago through the books of John Watson. He has a 4 volumes, International Master John Watson. He has a 4-volume set on the English. It's in English descriptive notation. If you can find it, get it. Mine is not for sale unless the price is extremely high. He's one of the best chess authors, in my opinion, of the modern era, and he continues to be active in chess today. He basically gives a lot of independent ideas. See, one thing I want you to understand about book moves is 99.99% and higher of book is nothing more than a game published somewhere, usually with a strong player involved. Most authors will just keep quoting, well, this was happened, slight advantage white won in 20 moves, white won in 40 moves, draw after 60. Watson goes into his material and says, what about this move? Try this. It's never been tested. It has this idea. He gives ideas, and that's what you need. You don't need a database of book knowledge. That's for a computer. You're not a computer. You play ideas, okay? So let's get to what white actually played. He played c5, and this was a new move to me. Now, I don't know how new it is. Again, I haven't studied this extensively in a long time. I was studying it really serious 30 years ago, and a lot during my correspondence chess career in ICCF, and I played a lot of c4 openings, so I ran into symmetrical Englishes many times until I abandoned correspondence chess good 10 years ago approximately. Well, anyway, I've not seen it. I checked the database, and it is book, and it stayed book for a few more moves. I don't know the theory on it, but I prefer all the ideas I've just shown you rather than the positions that come out of here, because like I say, it stays a book a few more moves. So I prefer the older lines, but that's my preference. What do you prefer? If you want to compare this line, you can compare this with some of the ideas I've shown you, okay, from either side of the board. Okay, so again, this was published theory, and what happens as a result, white doesn't get a lot of the things he normally gets in the normal symmetrical English. His vice grip on d5 is gone, with the center pawns gone. Black usually strives at some point to push b5 and with preparation and get rid of that white pawn on c4, and usually his a6 pawn will recapture on b5. That hasn't happened here. But really, I think black's done okay out of this. This is my own opinion on this, simply because he got done what he wants to do very quickly. He's accomplished his aim, and white hasn't made him have to work for it. Now, it's true white has an outside pawn majority on the queen side, but that's at this stage far from giving white a winning game. It's giving white some initiative, some plans for the future, but a lot of the white options, in my opinion, have vanished because the center has vanished. Okay, so let's move on and get to the main points here. Okay, so both sides are continuing their development, and it's interesting that usually the development occurs before the strategy is employed. Here, as I say, a lot of the ideas that black is trying to achieve in a symmetrical English have already happened, and so in my opinion, black is completely equal here. But white finds some good moves, and now puts some pressure on the white queen side. I mean the black queen side. Those pawns are isolated and weak. Is that enough for white to win? Possibly. He's just got to gear his game towards that motive. So a good candidate move for white here is something like queen a4. The queen is pretty much immune on a4. It's pressuring both pawns, and then white will want to transfer rook from f to d1 to gain a tempo on the queen if she still remains there, and then redeploy that knight somehow, somewhere, to get it to a better square. c4 is a wonderful outpost that ends up there later. It can't be driven away by the black bishop. And there's nothing wrong with what white played, but my opinion is keep queens on the board if you can. There's no need to trade them off. If you're playing for an initiative, you need more material on the board. Black could possibly trade queens here and survive this. Set up a defensive fortress that white can't crack. And if you're going to try to exploit the weak pawn on c6, you need more material on the board. Okay, so now knight d5, and that's a good reply as a result of white abandoning control of d5. Let's just back it up for a second and consider this again. If white plays queen a4, can black play knight d5? Well, the answer is maybe. Once again, white has rook d1 with a pin and putting more pressure on this square, and then the threat is e4. So I think queen a4 was the better move. And right here, white actually commits a mistake, and black reciprocates. Okay, e3 it was played, and it's just a bad move. Black has an interesting reply here, and it's e5. And what do you do with the bishop? You don't. So I don't know how black missed this. What white has to play is e4, and then we can make this exchange here. And black's a little better off here. It's black's move, and he's got the bishop pair, or not the bishop pair. He's got the bishop over the knight. The diagonal of the bishop is opened up, and even though white still has his outside pawn majority, black's better off here. What's white going to do? You know, I invite white to sit down and analyze this out a little bit. How he could have missed this, or he had something planned that didn't work. But anyway, this gives black the better game. But as I said, black reciprocated and didn't follow through with the correct move, and he went ahead and just grabbed the bishop. Let me just show how that happened. Okay, actually, when we define it, the PGN. Okay, e3, and it's a natural reaction to people to grab bishops for knights, but you know, sometimes you just have to look a little bit beyond the box and see what else there is. I'm discovered in all the videos I've done of players of all rating levels that people tend to grab bishops at the first opportunity for a knight, and it's not always the best idea. And here, just a simple e5 gives black a very nice game. Okay, so he grabbed the bishop, and you know, white's okay out of it, but now he's got a double pawns on his king side. But black had better, as I showed, and that's good. Get the pawn off the diagonal of the bishop, and now there's just a bit of maneuvering here, and that's a great square for the knight, blockading the pawn, the backward pawn. There's just a little bit of maneuvering here, and the game kind of becomes very level. Neither side really has anything here, and with that knight on c4, it's anchored in. It's really hard to say how black with his bishop can try for a win here, and white's is the one submitting this game, asking for help here. White really has few, if any, winning chances at the same time, simply because black doesn't have a whole lot wrong in his position. Yeah, there's some weak pawns, a5, c6, and e7, but the black pieces are active, even if they are for the moment defending. They can spring to life at a moment's notice, and it's not yet clear exactly how white's going to maneuver here, but he does find some good maneuvers and gains a little bit of ground. And whether those were the best ideas or not, I don't know. Now here's some direct pressure on the pawn, which ties this rook down. So even though I'm calling them active, in a way they're not. They're defending. The black heavy pieces are defending. But how does white continue? He's got to keep maneuvering. Love to get a knight in on e6, but how to get it there? Well, it's got to get to c5. That's its only entry square. If it gets to d4, it may get chopped off. Well, how do you get to c5? Knight to. It's got to get to. It's got to get to d3. That's the only entry square. So how do you get to d3? Well, if you go to b2, it may get chopped off. So you can go to e3, d1, and you got f2's in the way. Wow, it's hard to get that knight to e6. So black has plenty of time to do something. But if white just sits solid on the game, an online game, turn-based game, is perfect to try to implement a plan like that. See if it can be done. You sit down and you analyze things like that and say, can I get my knight to e6? How do I do it? Well, it takes me 10 moves. What does black do? And maybe black can't do a thing. Maybe what does black try to do? Maybe push c5 and anchor the bishop in on d4. That's certainly a better square for the bishop, and it's pressuring f2. These are things to consider too. So anyway, white does get rid of that one option of black putting that bishop on d4. He offers to let black win a pawn, although it's not really winning a pawn. White's going to win back on the one on e6. Okay, let's move on. Okay, c5, and now activate the queen, attack the rook. Okay. Now queen e6. I was talking earlier about getting a knight into e6. How possible is it now? As I said, you've got to get to c5, and it's not happening. That knight's not getting to e6, unfortunately. Okay, so queen e6. This is good. You know, but black finds the right moment to get rid of some of the pressure. And the one drawback with f4 is that the white king side is weak. And if black gets this down to a rook and pawn ending, he's probably got a draw, and he should have had one, as we'll see. And again, white doesn't really have enough artillery to pile up on the black position. Black can cover all of his weak squares, and at a moment's notice, this black queen could end up coming somewhere into the white position if the king gets active or the rook gets active. So black's doing okay, and I think white did right by trying to trade queens here. Just try his luck in the rook and pawn ending, because here maybe the king can advance, and if the king can get farther along, maybe let the black rook get active, win the pawn h2, win the pawn on h2, and the white king could try to penetrate the black position. But here black finds the right move and get rid of that weakness, open up some lines for the rook, and even though white's a pawn ahead, this position should be a draw because black's on the 7th rank, and white's rook is in front of the pawn, not behind it, and black should have a comfortable draw here, and it doesn't end up that way. Black makes life difficult for himself, and black could have gone rook a2 right away, but I guess it doesn't matter. And this is essentially, I believe, is a textbook draw. You need to look it up in rook and pawn endings. But how does white make any progress? His king can't get off the back rank, and even though you can get the pawn as far as the 7th rank, you can never do anything else with it because the rook can't run over to give a check or put the king on or put the king in danger of a hurdle with or X-ray attack. If the pawn's on the 7th rank, the rook goes to h8. Black takes the pawn on a7. You play rook h7 check. Well, the 7th rank is covered, so there's really nothing there. And you can try to advance the king over here this way, but black has resources, and guys can look it up in rook and pawn endings. But here, black made life difficult for himself. But anyway, maybe, unless I'm missing something, maybe white did have a strategy there. White could explain it. Maybe I believe the position's draw, but I could be wrong. Okay, rook takes, and now black's on the defensive again. Now he's got a new worry here, but black's still doing okay. But white's working his way out of the 7th rank, and I'm not going to try to show if black had a better defense, but I'm going to show white in a little bit the winning maneuver he missed, because he does admit he was probably winning, and I agree. And he's playing clever here. He's slowly but surely gaining some ground with his king and keeping the rook at bay from getting the pawns. And this was the move that gave the game away as far as a draw. White wins this, and I'll show you the maneuver. You start with rook c4, and the point is that black needs to play rook e1. There is no other move, right? If you allow a rook exchange, you just lost the king and pawn ending. So let me just show you the maneuver. What does black do here? Like I say, he has to play rook e1. Okay. Now, probably several good moves here. Let's just stop and check with the rook. Now, what does black do? Okay. If he plays king e6, then rook goes to g7, and you're going to drop this pawn. And there's my phone, and they can just call me back. Okay. I'm talking chess. Okay. And that pawn falls. So this makes the king have to go back. Now the white king comes up the board and will assist the advance of this e-pawn. But more importantly, this king will get into d5 and go in front of the pawn and so forth, and assist this pawn. So let's see. Let's just take a quick look. King g8, king d4. Okay, let's go ahead and give up this pawn. You can have it. All right. And now in we go. and black's got some serious problems here. Okay, he can fork a couple more pawns, but look, white's threatening a mate, right? How does black defend it? If he shoves his king sideways, this pawn's just running right in. There's no stopping it. So he's going to have to play king to e8, and then you play e6. Now there's another mate threat. And look at this poor rook on g4. He's winning pawns, but he's not helping. And now black's going to have to play king d8. And now white can win in a number of ways. The simplest maybe just be check again, then move the rook to h7, getting ready to check and shove the pawn, and black can resign. So that was the winning strategy. But let's look at the final moves. As I said, I have to find them here on the PGN. Okay, rook c4. Okay, king f7. Now e6 check. And oh, sorry. Okay, he checked on e6, and now black just achieves a drawn position. Black doesn't have the opposition, but he can regain it at the right moment, and white just can't gain any ground, and it's just a king and pawn ending that results in a draw. Okay, so anyway, it was a good game, well played. It's one advantage of turn-based games. You do have time to sit and analyze as long as you guys are analyzing. And I encourage in my program for you people to play online chess and to keep analyzing these things, because it teaches you how to analyze. It teaches you to get involved with chess. It teaches you how to take your time and find plans. And you have a chance to learn openings. You have a chance to learn some middle game strategy and look up endings. And learn those as you go, instead of being prepared for openings you'll never face. Okay, that's it for this video. I've got to upload it and get ready to make another one. Thanks for your time. Talk to you soon. Bye.